Okay. Tell me when I should put on my story now.
Yeah, put it right now.
Okay.
It's just should be beginning. It
We're up. Yeah, we're good.
which one? I have two up right now, and I don't know which one's which. Okay, I think we are live now.
All right. So just wait. Are we waiting for people to get in here first, or
Yeah,
at least whoever shows up?
hopefully. Yeah,
Cool.
see, that's the one tough thing. All right, I think I do see some viewers. I'm just going to get the chat open so we can view it.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure. Okay, now we should be live. I'm starting to see people trickle in. So, hello, everybody. This is our post game stream. We've usually been doing these on the Section 138 Instagram channel, but today we're deciding to do a YouTube stream. Not a very good game for the Blue Jays. They were demolished by the Washington Nationals by a final score of 8-2. Today, Bryson and I are going to be breaking down the game. Bryson, how are you, and what did you think about that game?
Well, I'm doing okay, Jacob, but yeah, not the greatest game. I know it was kind of exciting beforehand as the George Springer era has officially begun here for all Blue Jays fans and of course everyone around the game. And then of course the game itself didn't pan out to what we were expecting, especially for a debut like George Springer. And then we also saw the first, I guess, mediocre to bad start from Steven Matz, who's been one of the bright spots of the rotation so far. So, a little bit pretty disappointing game overall, but a lot of positives here as we head into May as well, especially with Springer back.
Mm-hmm. And sadly, I think we were all very excited for George Springer to come make his debut. Unfortunately, he went 0 for 4 today. Thankfully, no strikeouts. I guess that's a positive, but wasn't a very good debut for him. Steven Matz, I'm glad you mentioned him because I wanted to mention him too. This season, he's been absolutely fantastic so far. 4-0 with an ERA under 2. However, this season, he did not fare very, or this game rather, he did not fare very well. And I think we should mention that the Nationals have actually had his numbers in the past. He won his first game of his career against them, but he's 1-7 with a. But prior to this game, his ERA was in the mid fives. I can only imagine what it is now once the calculations are out. But today, 3 2/3 innings, 8 hits, and 6 earned runs. And sadly, it seems as if the Nationals just kind of they went off on him. And yeah, I don't know how much we can necessarily take away from this because Steven Matz has been good so far this season, but this start was not very good. And overall, I don't think this was a very good game for the Blue Jays. I have a few things written down about the offense, but yeah, Steven Matz just it was a bit of a tough outing for him today.
Yeah, I think we were all kind of expecting an eventual fall off, or not even a fall off, just a little bit of a regression from Steven Matz based off of his career, I guess, or statistically throughout his entire career. The numbers that he's put up so far to start the 2021, based off of his previous years, were not sustainable. And I think all of us kind of had that understanding. We were kind of expecting a little bit of a fall off, but tonight it went probably one of the worst ways it could have went. And for Steven Matz, he only pitched 3 2/3. He gave up 8 hits, 6 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. His ERA is now at 4. So just like that, a couple good starts and one bad start inflates his numbers back to just not good, or not horrible, but mediocre numbers. And it was just one bad start, but it's just all around, like I was mentioning before, the excitement building up to today's game with Springer and other things, and then unfortunately just tonight the Washington Nationals have had Steven Matz's number, and they've had his number in the past. Jacob, you mentioned his record against them previously, and it just didn't work out for him. He flat out didn't have his stuff tonight. And the early on before the 3-run home run that he gave up to allow 6 earned runs, it was 3-0 at the time. The Jays had a lot of opportunities to try and at least get back in the game. Maybe that changes the outcome from the following inning, but either way, Steven Matz also did not have a lot of run support when the Jays had the chance to do it. And for Steven Matz, I think we're expecting now, after tonight, I think it's safe to say we're going to be expecting a bounce back performance or a bounce back outing. I believe his next scheduled start would be in the Oakland series scheduled next week. And for a stadium like Oakland Coliseum, it's a pretty good pitcher's ballpark. It's a big ballpark, and I like the chances of Steven Matz having a bounce back start there next week in Oakland. I think that's one of the best stadiums possible for him to try and do that. But it's tough because with Steven Matz, other than Hyunjin Ryu, he has been the bright spot of this rotation. And we got the news today that Hyunjin Ryu was placed on the 10-day injured list with a right glute strain. And now when you look at it, other than Hyunjin Ryu, you have to take him out of the equation for the next 10 days or next 7. He's going to miss at least one start. Steven Matz is your only guy that has performed so far. You have Robbie Ray, and you have other guys that are on their way back. I know Ross Stripling's a possibility to return in Oakland. I know Nate Pearson's getting closer, but it's a little bit concerning. I know Hyunjin Ryu, I don't think we're expecting him to miss too much time. But right now, you're relying on Steven Matz and Robbie Ray, 2 guys, or now Steven Matz. You aren't expecting his numbers, as we mentioned, to sustain the way they were, and today they fell off a bit. And for Robbie Ray, somebody who hasn't gotten out to the greatest start possible. I know he's been inconsistent. His last start was good, but the start before that, we know the weird pitching line he put up. As much as he allowed 0 runs, he walked a lot of batters. It was against KC. And you got to rely on those 2 guys now to bounce back. And for Steven Matz, you hope that this was just a one-off. And next week in Oakland, he comes back.
And I mean, the Athletics have been on a bit of a roll this season. So let's hope Steven Matz can at least get down or bring them back down to earth. But one of the good things is the Coliseum is a very big ballpark. So maybe there's a bit of wiggle room for Steven Matz. But I want to go back to a point that you mentioned with the lack of run support. The Blue Jays had 3 hits today, 2 runs via Lourdes Gurriel Jr.'s home run and Bo Bichette's home run. Problem is 7 were left on base. And I think that's one of the big problems. The Blue Jays, we've seen this all throughout the season. Their offense has not been the greatest. It's been okay at times. It's gotten the job sometimes. But I think today's game was especially a reminder that the offense can be good, but it needs to be better, and it is still struggling. Obviously, they did get Springer back. He had an O for today. But for the most part, this offseason was not this offense was not great. And one thing that I wanted to mention, I did some looking back on the first game of the series. Blue Jays beat the Nationals yesterday 9-5. They lose today 8-2. One of the differences is in game 1, you had an absolutely fantastic performance from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., whereas today you didn't have that. And so one thing that I'm thinking, obviously it's great for Vladdy that he had that performance, and it was great that they were able to win that game. But I think this shows that the Blue Jays are a team that you can't rely on individual performances. They're a team, yes, each player throughout that lineup is extremely good, but they're not a team that you can say, okay, Vladdy, carry us, or Springer, when you get settled in, carry us. This is a team that's going to need to really string together some hits. And, I mentioned with Vladdy, 0 for 3 today. Danny Jansen also 0 for 2 today, and he hasn't had a hit since April the 7th. So this offense, it's not stringing together hits enough, and especially even when they are getting guys on base, it's just they aren't able to capitalize. And again, this has happened all throughout the season, but when the Blue Jays lose, I think it's even more evident the flaws within the roster, because now all of the things that do work when they win, they don't work now that they're losing, or now that they've lost and they're back under 500 again.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because this offense as well, we're heading into May now, and it continues to be the struggle. I mentioned earlier it was 3-0 at the time. Steven Matz allowed 3 runs at the time, and the Jays had the bases loaded, and they couldn't capitalize on anything. And then, of course, the next inning is when they went ahead 6-0, and it could change the course of the game if the Jays catch in a few runs then. Who knows where they go from there? But it's been inconsistent all year in terms of cashing in runs. The runners in scoring position, we've mentioned the numbers they have. They're the bottom 3 now in the league. I think the last time we recorded, which was on Sunday, they were 28th, and they were only better than Cleveland and the New York Mets. And that's concerning. While the pitching, on the other hand, has been carrying this team. And it's been inconsistent. There has been flashes of them. We know the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. game he had yesterday where he took over. But other than that, really, it's been home runs or nothing. I mean, you look at tonight, the same thing happened. As much as Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has been struggling and you want to see him hit, he was the only one, or him alongside Bo Bichette, both solo shots, both of them. So 2 solo shots, and that was it. Nobody on base, and the game was already out of hand by then. And it's just, it can't continue like this for a team that wants to compete. George Springer is back. We know that. That should be a boost. Teoscar Hernandez is on the way back as well. But you don't expect this to be this bad, I guess, when we head into May. It's just, it doesn't seem sustainable for me based on the talent they have on this lineup and on this roster. But so far, it's definitely been frustrating. When you look at names like that, you mentioned Danny Jansen as well, still in a massive slump. Tonight, there was a few at-bats in particular where I noticed that he kind of got unlucky. I think one play where he hit a sharp liner to third base, could have easily got by the third baseman and could have been extra bases for sure. But he's been unlucky. And, other than him, there's been many other people that have been struggling. So it's got to end eventually. It's just we haven't seen too many signs. I know Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had his monstrous game last night, but unfortunately, that's still not enough for this team overall to get going offensively, because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been not only, or if just the only Blue Jay that has been hitting.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I think one of the things that we should take into consideration is the alternate training site, because we saw today, actually, right before the game, right before Blue Jay Central, there was an influx of information being poured out to us with Ryu going on the IL, George Springer coming back. But one thing that I found interesting was that Rowdy Tellez was actually optioned or was sent to the alternate training site to work on his game. And I think initially I was thinking maybe that's not the best idea. Why send him down to the alternate training site? But when you consider the fact that he is struggling, that is something that he should do. And unfortunately, with Danny Jansen, there's really no other option, because what do you? Reese McGuire is unfortunately not much of a better offensive catcher, and it's just the offense it's been struggling to the point where I feel like it's not sustainable, and I don't think it's good enough to take the Blue Jays to a farther area in the season. But another thing that I wanted to mention about Rowdy Tellez, one of the reasons why I'm warming up to moving him to the alternate training site, is the fact that he is primarily a designated hitter. And he can play first base, but you're not taking Vladimir Guerrero Jr. out of the lineup. And with Springer likely DHing, I would say probably for the entire Atlanta series, Rowdy Tellez is not going to get any at-bats. So first of all, it makes sense for him to go to the alternate training site to work on his game. But also, just like we've seen with Anthony Kay, rather than put him in a position where he's not actually going to play or not play the way the Blue Jays want him to, that is an option for him to then work on his game and kind of get into the groove, but also improve, because, again, he has been struggling this season, and it's been consistent. It's better, yes, than his 0 for, what was it, a 21 streak or 0 for 22, but it's still, he's somebody that really is going to need to also come back around, especially as a lefty, because the Blue Jays do not have many lefties, and he's one that they will rely on, especially considering their lineup is so right-handed heavy.
Yeah, and the one thing I think that a lot of people didn't really notice or realize was the possibility that this was going to happen. And a lot of us kind of overlooked the idea of George Springer taking a lot of reps at DH once he was back. A lot of us were very quick to say, Jonathan Davis is the guy going to go down. It's going to be Jonathan Davis. And we never really thought of Rowdy Tellez. The only thing we did think of was that his playing time, regardless, was definitely going to diminish. I mentioned a few days ago that if Rowdy Tellez stayed up, it would have been him or Lourdes Gurriel Jr. fighting for at-bats, because Randal Grichuk is somebody who took advantage of this massive opportunity with Springer being out for the majority of the month of April, and he's played his way to be in this lineup every day for the time being. So when you take him in, or when you keep him in, that leaves Rowdy Tellez, that leaves Lourdes Gurriel Jr. fighting for playing time, because George Springer is a center fielder. But in the unique situation right now where George Springer has to DH to slowly regain, I guess, or just regain his strength in his quad, because we know he still isn't really 100% when he's running. They have to take advantage of this, or Rowdy Tellez is going to be going down to the training site, and this is an opportunity for him to try and get his timing back. He has looked off majority of the season so far, and I believe the AAA season begins May 6th. It's May 4th or May 6th. It's early May, but it's coming up soon. So if he spends or plays a few games for the Bisons, I don't know if that's possible or not. Maybe he's back up by then. But for the time being, even if Rowdy Tellez stayed on this roster, he wasn't going to play much. So maybe that's why sending him down to the alternate site could benefit him more, rather than sitting on the bench and pinch hitting in situations if it's a blowout or if it's in the ninth inning and they're in need of a run, puts more pressure on him. Either way, it probably wouldn't be the best for him to stay on the bench right now based off the way he's playing. So him going to the alternate site, we know a lot of things can come from the alternate site, a lot of good things. A lot of players have spoken fondly of it. So Tellez has an opportunity now for the next week to try and regain his timing. And maybe before the AAA season officially starts, he can rejoin the team. And maybe by then, because of course, for all Blue Jays fans and George Springer himself, we'd rather him be in center field. because of obviously that makes him more of a complete player. And we know the potential he has in center field rather than just his at-bats. So I don't know how long he DHs for. I don't know if it's going to be consistent. Maybe he starts rotating by the weekend, but it definitely won't be on consecutive days for the time being. And in that case, holding an extra outfielder like Jonathan Davis seems like the right move to do. And it makes the most sense. I know a lot of people at the beginning were kind of questioning why it was Rowdy Tellez, but it took for Charlie Montoyo to come out and reveal that he would be DHing majority of the time, which is George Springer. And when you think of it like that and someone struggling like Rowdy Tellez, it makes the most sense right now for the short term. Now, for the short term, maybe a week, maybe 2 at most. We really don't know how long this will last in terms of Rowdy Tellez being in the minor leagues or even at the alternate trading site. Sorry, but it really all depends on when George Springer is going to be healthy enough to be in center field every day. So once that happens, you hope that Rowdy Tellez can regain his timing. And this is an opportunity for him to do that in this next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Springer is an impact player on both sides of the field. So realistically, he's going to get in the outfield eventually. I think it will probably be towards the end of the Atlanta series. They have an off day. Today is, make sure I know. Today is Wednesday. Yeah, they have an off day tomorrow. They play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday against the Braves, and maybe they put him in towards the end of that. One thing I want to mention, I want to kind of go back to the Danny Jansen conversation because there is a question in the chat here from Mark saying 34 consecutive at-bats for Danny Jansen, tied for second longest streak in franchise history. And it's sad. I mean, Danny Jansen's a guy, I feel like we got to spend a little bit more time on that because he is a guy he's a good defensive catcher, but I don't think that that's enough to justify keeping him on the roster because at the end of the day, his average it was 0.049 going into today's game. I'd imagine it's around, I don't know, maybe 0.045, something like that. I'd have to look at the calculation, but he's not been good enough, I don't think, to keep him on the roster. Now, with that being said, the Blue Jays have Alejandro Kirk. Maybe they start him, although I don't know if you necessarily want to throw somebody as young into the fire because he is still unproven. And I like Alejandro Kirk. I want to see him play, but I still do think we have to wait maybe just a little bit, or maybe I'm completely wrong. I think maybe if the Blue Jays are willing to give him the opportunity, he can kind of take it by storm. What do you think about that? Because I do think we kind of need to, as a fan base and even as management, realize that, Danny Jansen is struggling this season, but his offense has not been overly great pretty much for the entirety of his major league career.
Yeah, and quick shout out to Mark. Even if he's not here, he's still sending us these stats. So thank you, Mark, for that. That's
the moderator came into the chat.
Yeah, of course he did. So thank you for that, Mark. But I look at it and I think you have to keep Danny Jansen on just because I don't know who else you bring up. I know there's Reese McGuire, but if he comes up and he decides to struggle again, then you got to take the risk and put him through waivers again. And is that something the Jays are willing to do? I don't know. I think it's a little too far-fetched right now. There's Riley Adams, but I prefer him to start playing minor league games because the minor league season is set to start within the next couple of weeks, regardless if it's in New Hampshire or not even in Buffalo this case. For this year, for actual AAA, it'll be in Trenton. So because the Jays will eventually be in Buffalo, but either way, they're starting soon. And when you take that out, I know there's Juan Gratterall, and I think somebody that the Jays got recently a few weeks ago, or right before the spring started, and I'm not willing to give him any chances right now over Jansen. The fact of the matter is that Danny Jansen is in a massive slump. And the thing is, though, they were talking about on the broadcast tonight, and they were saying how you can change the game just as much behind the plate. And we're not taking anything away that Danny Jansen is very good behind the plate. And that's why you have to keep him on this roster now, in the possibility that Alejandro Kirk continues to start hitting better and he overpasses or overtakes Jansen to start. I'm all in favor for that. I think that's something that should be definitely considered. And it's something that I'm in full favor for. I actually like it when there's situations where Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen are in the lineup at the same time. Obviously, there's the risk of a potential injury. Who's the emergency backup catcher? And if there's nobody, then you got to obviously remove the DH and then bring in Kirk or not. It's pretty much what I'm saying. It's a gamble, but it's something that you don't see often from them. But I do like when they do that. But Alejandro Kirk is obviously the better hitter. I think Danny Jansen is the better catcher. I think we can agree with that one. So that's why it's a tough situation what the Jays are in. Now, the one thing I wonder, because Hyun-Jin Ryu has been sidelined for at least the next 10 days. And
I
we
was
know
just
that
going to say that.
Jansen is the personal catcher to Hyun-Jin Ryu, or somebody that Ryu likes to throw to. How much does Jansen play now? I know he played tonight. Alejandro Kirk, I would probably assume, would be playing Friday night, just based off of how we've been seeing the rotation kind of going. It's kind of been an alternate day for both of them. I'm pretty sure it'll be Alejandro Kirk based on what we've seen playing Friday night. And throughout the weekend as well, if Alejandro Kirk plays well or consistently plays well over this next week, Danny Jansen's playing time can definitely diminish, and until Hyun-Jin Ryu is back. But for the time being, it has to be Danny Jansen unless you look externally and maybe trade for someone down the line. I still think we're a little early for potential trades, maybe some point during I guess when we get into the warmer months. But right now, those two guys are Alejandro Kirk and Danny Jansen, and those are your two catchers. One of them is a better hitter than the other, and then one of them is a better catcher. So when you look at it, Jansen, but the way he's been hitting overall, it's definitely one of the lowest it's ever been at, or it has been, based off of the stat that Mark just sent us a few minutes ago. But overall for his career, he hasn't even been a good hitter overall. And Jacob, you mentioned that just before I started talking, but it's never been this bad. So, obviously the Jays can get by with how Danny Jansen has looked, I guess, based off of his career numbers. But, with the team struggling to hit so far, they need everyone possible to start hitting, and that includes Danny Jansen when he's in the lineup. So for now, you keep him on the roster, I think, for the time being as well. And for someone like Hyun-Jin Ryu who likes to throw to Jansen, that's also going to keep him on this roster for probably the majority of the season, or at least the entire season, based on what we know of. But in the situation where Alejandro Kirk eventually surpasses him, we spoke about this in the winter, we spoke about it in the spring. We all know it's a possibility, and it's pretty much going to be up to Kirk if he decides to start hitting consistently. And there's a chance that he does that based on what we saw last year.
Yeah, and I think another question in the chat from Mark kind of flows nicely into this. What is the deadline for Jansen to start hitting before Kirk takes over the starting job? He says mid-May. What day is it? It is April the 28th. I'm going to say by the end of the weekend, we might see Danny Jansen take a bit of a step back, because hear me out. Like you just said, I wanted to mention that Hyun-Jin Ryu is not going to likely play until the series finale in Oakland. Alejandro Kirk has the opportunity to play 2-3 consecutive games. Now, okay, say best case scenario for Kirk, he does well. Say he hits around 250, which is, I guess you can say, league average, or around the average that you want. Does that mean that Charlie Montoyo's handing him the starting job? I don't know, maybe not, but maybe that gives them a little bit more flexibility and say, okay, the guy that Danny Jansen typically catches is not pitching. Here's your opportunity to kind of make your way into at least, maybe not a starting role, but maybe a 50-50 split, because I think at the end of the day, the Blue Jays need offense right now. I like Danny Jansen as a defensive catcher, but they need to score runs, and especially considering the rest of the offense is struggling. And like, maybe you could argue that if the offense was doing well overall, Danny Jansen could kind of slip under the radar offensively, but it just, when they need performance and they need hitting from everybody. So maybe the Blue Jays do something internally, because as you said, they don't have depth. I think it's a little too early to go for trades, or the depth they do have, I should correct myself, is just it's unproven. Yeah. So it's just, I'm going to say that. I know you probably disagree with that, but I think maybe give him a chance. I think this is perhaps the opportunity for Danny Jansen.
Well, the thing is, though, based on what we've seen so far, it's been pretty close to a 50-50 split, maybe a majority of the other side, but relatively it's been pretty close and it's been pretty even. So the thing with Alejandro Kirk is his last 7 games, or the last 7 days, either way, the last week, he is beginning to heat up. He's got an average line of 278, 350, and 333. So obviously the OPS is still not the highest, but overall his average is going up, and it's slowly going up, rather than Jansen, who we all know has not had a hit in almost a month. We're getting close to that point, and that's pretty tough to do. I know he's been unlucky. Like I mentioned tonight, he had a pretty solid hit up third base that could have easily gotten by for a double maybe in the corner, but that just
took someone's glove off too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
so
he's had some hard contact.
It's pretty hard to do what he's doing, but either way, career-wise, he's not a good hitter from what we've seen. Now, do the Jays want him to get better, and is something that he's striving to do? Of course it is, but the impact he makes defensively, and when he's catching someone like Ryu, definitely helped the team. And a lot of people don't really understand the impact a catcher can have on the team. But if Alejandro Kirk starts to heat up like he has been this past 7 days, then absolutely, I think that maybe by the middle of the month he starts overtaking Jansen. Like I mentioned, I think this is an opportunity for Kirk, because with Ryu out, it makes Jansen, I don't want to say vulnerable, but I think that's the word to use in terms of consistent playing time or a 50-50 rotation like they have going on now. If Kirk overtakes him or starts playing better, he can easily be starting for like 3-4 straight games, and then only Jansen plays when Ryu pitches. I mean, that's a possibility. Of course, do I want to see that? If Jansen keeps hitting like this, of course I'm going to want to see that. But I think Jansen, like it's pretty bad where he is. I think we're at the basement, and he's going to have to get better eventually, right? Like, I don't know if this is sustainable, but this is probably one of the worst starts that we've ever seen from not only a catcher, but a hitter on this team. This is pretty bad. So mid-May, I definitely think that's realistic. Maybe even heading into June, I wouldn't be surprised the Jays keep hanging on and trying to give Jansen opportunities, because this team really likes Danny Jansen, and this organization really does. Hyun-Jin Ryu does. And that's the biggest X factor, is Hyun-Jin Ryu does. I think that really is. So mid-May, maybe even the end of May to early June would definitely be the deadline. But these next 10 days or 7 days, whatever we have left until Ryu is eligible to come off the injured list, I think is going to be crucial for Kirk if he gets the opportunity. And based on what we've been seeing, it's been about a 50-50 split, so he definitely will be.
Yeah, I totally agree. The thing with Danny Jansen is the Blue Jays do like him, and I don't think that they're necessarily willing to give up on him. I think we are rounding up to about 30 minutes, so I think we'll answer one more question before we wrap it up. We have
there we go.
Hopefully I pronounced this right. Just Old Stamps asking, how large of an impact will George Springer make on his return? So I think, so overall today he was not very good, 0 for 4, but it's his first game, and it's his first game of 900 that he'll play for the Blue Jays. So I think that he will be an impact player. The Blue Jays signed him to be an impact player. He is obviously the World Series MVP in 2017. You know how we all think about that championship, but he was good for the Astros that time. 2-time Silver Slugger, 3-time All-Star. So with George Springer, he's one of the best players on the Blue Jays. I think that's fair to say. He'll be good defensively.
He is.
The thing with Randall Grichuk is I believe this is the last year of his contract. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going back to what he said a couple of months ago. We mentioned that. So I don't know if Randall Grichuk is brought on past this season. So I think George Springer, I mean, obviously he is your everyday center fielder. So I think he's an impact player both defensively and offensively, and he's a veteran presence, because one of the things I've heard on the broadcast is, whether it's Joe Siddall, Jamie Campbell, John Axford, they're all saying George Springer is a veteran. He's at the top of your lineup. So what he can do is he can kind of take away the pressure from the young guys, because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been raking all season long, but now he doesn't have to, because there's another option in the roster. So George Springer is one of the, if not the best players on the Blue Jays, at least on the offensive side. So yeah, he's an impact player, and clearly the Blue Jays, the way I see it, is if they were willing to commit to having him on the roster for that long, then I think they trust him and they know that he'll eventually be on that World Series team.
I mean, almost over 3,000 at-bats, 269 average, 174 home runs, 458 RBIs, 48 stolen bases, and an 851 career OPS. I think that speaks for itself in terms of the impact that George Springer makes. And Jacob, for your reasons alone about taking pressure away from the younger guys, that is exactly why I wanted him leading off for this team. Not only I think he's the best hitter on this team, but he takes away the pressure from the younger guys. He's been there before. 2017, he was still part of that, and he's still technically a World Series champion. But he's done it and he's won. So he's bringing this over to a team like this, and he's a flat out leader on this team. I think that's safe to say. In center field, we know that he's very good defensively as well, and there's a 6-year investment in him. So the impact he makes is pretty substantial when you look at it. 6 years that the Jays get from him, 5 or 6 years, and that's long term. So when you're asking the impact that he makes, I think that all speaks for itself, especially the dollar value that the Jays gave him And this is something that the Jays need. They, especially right now with the team that's struggling as much as they are offensively, they need this boost. And George Springer is the guy to do that. And, when you want to, I guess, nitpick or dissect every little detail, as much as he went 0 for 4 tonight, he did have 3 lineouts. So, in that case, he hit it to the right or the wrong fielder at the wrong time, but a lot of solid contact. I know he's not 100%. We're still waiting on the quad to be completely full or heal so we can go back to center field every day. But either way, to get a portion of Springer right now, and that in terms of that is what I mean is him hitting. It's a massive breakthrough for this team. It completely changes the look of the lineup because now you can move Kevin Biggio down in the middle part of the order to the later part of the order. He still has to get going. Marcus Semien, we've seen how much more comfortable he's gotten at the 5 or the 6 hole. So George Springer takes the leadoff position, and he's going to be leading the way for this offense. There's no other way to put it. And the fact that he's finally here and the era has finally begun, it's pretty relieving, and it's pretty exciting to see that it's finally here.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Well,
yeah.
I think we'll wrap it up there. We're coming up on 30 minutes about usually what we do for a post-game stream. So thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you to Bryson for joining. Hopefully we can get Mark on next time because
next time, baby.
We all love bantering together, and this is a really fun thing to do. Just before we wrap it up, obviously this stream is on YouTube. You can check out episode 116 of Section 138 on the channel, as well as our old live streams, which there's a few bloopers in those. I won't lie, but we got a lot of fun, a lot of fun things going on the channel.
Almost there,
especially throughout the.
Come on, keep going. Almost there.
As I said, you can support us on Patreon. It's a couple bucks a month. You can join our Discord, hopefully join some of our streams. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We don't want to talk about those. Those are bad. Yeah. But Spotify, everything. So thank you for listening. The Blue Jays do not play tomorrow. This is our post-game stream before an off day. They then play the Atlanta Braves on Friday. I don't know. I don't think the Braves starter has been confirmed, but I know Robbie Ray is starting for the Blue Jays. But thank you for listening. And until then, we'll catch you next time.